Alright guys, we're back for another boiler retrofit, and we're going to be taking out this very large Olsen and replacing it with a Navien NFC-175. Probably going to be going on the wall there with all our zones and everything put on this wall. Don't quite know that for sure 100%, but we'll figure that out. We're definitely going to be removing this hot water tank and moving it over to about that location, so we actually have some access to work on here. Just going to be a temporary move, but at least then we'll have the ability to do all our prep work here while this still maintains and heats the rest of the house. Odd setup, well, I shouldn't say odd, but just different. We have 1.25 inch supply and return coming off there, and we actually have 3 zones, 2 here and 1 here, that handle the upstairs side of the house. And then the 1.25 inch lines actually go all the way into the suite over there, and they go into 3 more zones. So we're probably going to do something a little bit different. We're probably going to have primary, secondary, but we're going to have 2 separate areas where the zones are going to be in this room and in the other room for now. But until we get to that point, demo everything, we'll see what our final layout and what our final plan is. We just did a small change right here, just changed that pressure relief valve out and added a new expansion tank that was waterlogged, just to give us a bit more time because of the leaking going on here, so that we might have another few weeks or a month just to do the swap out at our leisure, where it's not interfering with the customer. So we'll see how this turns out, and hopefully we're going to make a world of difference with this new setup. All right, everybody, welcome back. We have finished this. Once again, it's taken a few days, weeks, even months to finish this project, and it's not because we were here for that much. The time just dealing with a whole bunch of other issues, other customers, you know how it goes. But we weren't going to rush the system. I wanted it to not only work well, but to look well, and I think it turned out fairly decently at the end of the day. We ended up adding on 3 more zones in this mechanical room, and that's what you see here. Probably would have done things a little bit differently, but the customer wanted to just go ahead with the original plan of just moving 3 zones that were in the ceiling down here onto this wall, and I said that's fine, and then we'll just run our return and our supply over here for the next zone. But we ended up discovering the other zones. They wanted to run them in here, so we ended up running new lines all the way over here, creating this similar pattern over here to tie it in with this system here. So now it's a dual system, and I'm actually very happy how it turned out. Actually, I really was concerned I may not like how this overall look aesthetically was, but I think it actually turned out pretty sharp. You know, people might scoff the fact that, well, you added 2 extra 90s and 2 extra 90s there when you didn't need to. Sure, you don't need to, but the system still works, and it's still going to work just fine. You have a few extra 90s. That happens in a lot of systems, right? So right now, currently, we have our zone calling for heat. And that's why I love these Takeo Sentry valves, because you can instantly see with the lights on if they're on, and you can feel when we got heat flowing here. And once again, it is true reverse return. First one fed off is the last one to return, and vice versa, and same over here as well. So this is our zone 1, or zone 4 I should say, and this is our zone 4 return. So first one to fed, last one to return, and so on and so forth. So real easy to decipher that. If you need to isolate it, you can shut this off here, shut that off here, flush the water through the system. In this case, we can do it down here. We can isolate the main off over here, or just use the boiler feed over here. Let the boiler water come in through the system, up through the supply, back down through the return, and open these valves out and purge the air out of the system. I find that's the easiest and quickest way of doing it. Redundancy on these systems. Right down here, drains, isolation valves for your pumps. Everything is labeled on here, so it's easy to take a look, see where they're going on. Like we have a problem with, zone 2, okay, well, zone 2, switching relay 2, pump 2, and then you can go to zone 2 and know, okay, that's zone 2 and pump 2, and this is the pump that's operating that, right? So very simple, very easy to do. With the primary piping, stuck with our traditional system here of doing a hydraulic separator. Love using a hydraulic separator. Basically divides the system. It's a good dividing point, and you can do your primary loop here, and then of course obviously you have your secondary loop over here. In this particular case, with this primary loop, if you mount it, which is what I did here, I mounted it, mounted the boiler, mounted some of the zones here, and then you just connect the dots when you tie everything in. You know your elevations. With this setup, I always like to have my shutoffs and my drains all on a nice level playing field, so it's just simple, easy. You're not fighting to get a valve in there. You can just come over here, shut that valve off, and then flush the system, drain it down, whatever you want to. Put our standard magnetic filter in there. Always a must, especially in older, dirtier systems. Checked it a few times, fairly clean compared to some systems that I have seen, but that's why it's there, to protect the boiler, especially on the return side there. We have back here our Zern double check valve assembly. It's just designed as a backflow device. We have our testing card there. We have our reliefs right here, more on commercial jobs, but I like to add it on residential jobs. It's just that one extra step of professionalism. We have our Honeywell 911 in the back there, which I love, just dialing in the pressure. This pressure gauge just doesn't seem to be working on. I think it's plugged, but we can fix that later. Obviously, we have our pressure gauge on the low loss header working just fine. And then, of course, we put a larger expansion tank on here, so I put in some soft copper, bent it back, so obviously there's enough room for the expansion tank to actually fit in there. This is a Califacto one, and I usually like the Amtrol ones because they are slender, but I had this one in stock, so I figured, well, let's use that. And then I love the Axiom hydraulic node. Just makes life so much easier and just ultimately ends up for a nice clean install. We have had one error code on this Navien since we installed it. Error code E110-03, exhaust blockage. So we looked at it, we couldn't find anything, but we did end up just cutting this down a little bit just to get a bit more slope, and we found when we did cut it, we had a lot of water come back, which doesn't make any sense because I thought we had slope unless we were just missing something. So hopefully we resolve that. If not, we're going to do something for the customer one way or another, whether it's through tech support or figure that out. But I love little problems like that. Just helps you become a better technician, especially when it comes to diagnosing. So overall, this system, it's complete. We ended up with 6 zone system divided into 3s. And as you can see, the XXX 3 look here with one pump handling 3 zones and another pump handling 3 zones, and we have 2 switching relays. Now these are ZV Charlie 404 switching relays made by Taco, and I put the 4 in there because if you ever have a failure in one of the relays, you can, put all your wires to that extra zone. Make sure you turn off zone priority for zone 4. But you can switch it there and it's a backup. So sometimes it's always good yeah, you might just need 3 zones or 4 zones or 5 zones, but to put an extra one in there, it's a smart idea, because if you have a failed relay, you don't have to change the whole control board. You just switch the wires over to that empty spot or that empty terminal. But once again, guys, really enjoyed this install. These installs take a lot out of me and a lot of time, and wouldn't have been able to get it done as quickly and as nicely without our electrical division. Big shout out to them for doing a lot of the wiring, a lot of the hidden things, because when you take off these control panels, these switching relays, or even up here, you will see a maze, or not a maze, but a series of beautiful wires. Maybe I'll show you that before this video ends, just to show you how important it is to be organized. Okay, so now we'll take this panel off and show you. Look how neat and organized. Rather than having a bunch of morettes and a bunch of wires spread out everywhere, our electricians did a beautiful wiring job in this panel. And of course, you can see it's all color coded too. Some of them are end switches, some of them are for the thermostats themselves, but you can easily trace and follow them back here, especially with this terminal strip. Just love the work they did, top notch, and it reflects everything in this mechanical room, and everything that they did, that myself did, and anybody else who was involved in this project. So another one off the books, and we'll see you on the next one.